Welcome to Behind the Sicko, where we pull back the curtain on the unseen truth of addiction recovery and talk about things most people never get a chance to see. I'm your host, Josh Torbich. Each week, we're sitting down with people who lived it, led it, and are still learning from it today. This isn't polished, it's real, it's raw, and it's noted in the faith and hope because we do recover. So whether you're in recovery, walking alongside someone who is, or just trying to understand what healing really looks like, you came to the right place. Let's dig in. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Another episode of Behind the Sicko. I turned my hat on backwards so I could look a little bit more like a hoodlum because the sheriff is in town.
Because I'm here. Yeah, that's right.
Are you more likely to pull me over? No, I'm just kidding. Because my hat's on backwards. Sheriff, we love you. We appreciate you. You're a pillar of the community, and we've always been grateful for the work that you've done. And it was great to be able to get you, kind of emotionally headlocked you to come. I backdoored it because I convinced your assistant.
That's right.
To put me on. So you might not have even known you were coming.
No, I knew I was
coming. Until you looked this morning and you said, where am I scheduled to go? So I want to give a very special shout out to Felicia, who made all this possible with us today.
She makes my world go round. She keeps me aligned. She keeps me straight, and she tells me where I got to be. But I'm thankful for the opportunity. I had so much fun sitting on the bench with you in Charlotte, and that was a lot of fun, and it seemed like it breezed by. So I'm just glad to be here and glad that the information and the word's getting out.
Yeah, I'm a little bit less tired for this.
You look fresh.
I slept last night.
Yeah, okay.
Other than the bench.
Yeah.
Now, just another note, though, the conversational bench, it is coming up again in October.
Okay.
So I'm going to be looking for another chat on that bench. Those ones are a little bit shorter. Yeah, because the attention span when you're sleep deprived, I'm not as sharp as I could be.
That's right.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, today, the conversation today, there was a time in your career, and we've talked about this before. The title of it is The Limits of Handcuffs. This fits directly in with your philosophy. We've talked about it. Drug and alcohol addiction. You're one of the sheriffs, like many across our state, who came to a realization that you can't arrest away this problem on drug and alcohol addiction. When did you come to that conclusion?
I think that started a while back when Sheriff Ingram was here, and he was very instrumental in trying to change the mindset of law enforcement in Brunswick County. And so he's the one that taught us that. And when I was in special operations working a K-9, obviously drug enforcement was our street level drug enforcement was one of our main objectives. And you would see so many times those people that while they were still using, and I'm talking about the users here, I'm not talking about the dealers, because the dealers are the ones that need to be in jail, they need to be in prison. They're providing this poison for the people that cannot get out of that cycle. So the users are the ones that you would see over and over again, but you could see it in their face that they were getting beat down, and there just was nothing as far as programs or communities. They didn't know where to turn, and all they knew was to continue what they were doing. So, I would see it time and time again, and I'm just so thankful now that the culture's been changed and we're realized we cannot arrest away this problem for everybody. And I'm glad we have resources at the sheriff's office and in the community now, including yourself, that we can try to break that cycle, get them out of that addiction. And it is just a beautiful thing when you see them graduate. Like we just graduated one yesterday, one of our females in the detention center from the ARROW program. Mm-hmm. And to see the laughter and them talk about what they're going to do when they get out and the things they're going to do different. And they know that they have something that's driving them they can grab a hold to that's going to, hopefully keep them sober and just make them great pillars of the community.
Yeah, let's segue into that right now because many people might not know. So this is kind of what I call you practice what you preach, because you've put intentional effort around carrying on the legacy from Sheriff Ingram's Anchor Initiative program, which we interact with John Oliver on like a daily basis. If there's one hustler in this county, it's John Oliver. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll tell you, he's a hustler, man. He's every time that phone rings, I'm like, boy, I feel bad for you. Everyone's calling him, but he's got this number out there. But now launching into your recent new addition, which is directly inside of the detention center, the Arrow program with Emma. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it basically we didn't have anything. We had NA, we had AA in the detention center that would come in, but I think they were missing more of that. I guess that psychological piece. So we were able to get a clinician in there, and Emma heading up that program, giving them the tools and the education that they need to again break that cycle. I know that I'm probably going to say that a lot because that's kind of what it is. They get in that wheel and they just can't get out of it, and so we give them an alternative, and it's just it's so great to see them turn their things around. But yeah, I'm very proud of the AR initiative. We got it through a county grant this year. It's up and running. We've already graduated folks. So great things. And, our goal is to grow this program and to add new pieces to make it hopefully even easier and give them more tools, because the more tools they get when they get out, the more successful they can be.
Those are important pieces, the program initiatives and the direct attention to the folks who are traveling through the detention center for whatever reason. But one of the things that you tapped into that has really been good for us, and I see it from my perspective, is the culture piece that you talked about. You have hundreds of employees with the sheriff's office, and I always say this all the time: programs are great, but a community's culture or an organization's culture is what really creates results. And I got to give your deputies a really big shout out. I live next to one of them, by the way, one of your deputies. He's my friend. I won't put him on blast, but I'll tell you what, he's a good neighbor. When I'm working through the programs, there's often times where I look right out front, especially during like the times of our warming facilities, and one of your deputies are bringing someone to our front door. Don't know how they encountered them, don't know how they found them or whatever it is, but they're the transportation device that gets them directly to the doorstep of a resource that can help them. That's not really the organization. That's the culture. So you guys have worked hard. And Sheriff Ingram had this belief and philosophy in him. You're carrying that on. Has that been a heavy lift to keep that going with the culture of the sheriff's office?
I don't think it's been a heavy lift, but I tell you what's the most frustrating part is no matter how many times we get in front of people and we talk about it, you'll ask the question, have you ever heard of the Anchor Initiative? Have you ever heard of any of the programs we have? And people that don't raise their hands. So, kudos to you for giving us mediums like this to get this information out there, that we have programs at the sheriff's office. Your community has programs, and it's just a matter of getting that information out there and letting everybody know what they are, because a lot of people move in here, which you see just like everybody else, 8,000 to 8,500 new residents a year, trying to keep up and give everybody that information that they need, because they may have struggled where they came from and they're moving down here trying to get, a different sense of environment, and they could still fall into that if they don't have the tools that they need. So just the biggest struggle for us is getting everybody or get the information out there. We have a team, an impact group. That's all they do is go and get in front of communities, spread information, tell them about the sheriff's office, tell them about the programs, but it's hard to keep up with the amount of growth in Brunswick County. So that's our biggest struggle.
Yeah, that is a struggle. I can imagine. Even for us, you wish, I guess you'd say this for us too, you wish that we were needed less. Like you wish the sheriff's office was needed less, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that you weren't needed as much. That would mean it's a safer place, less crime being committed, all of those things. You guys have limitations on what you can even do. So there might be even this, and if you don't mind, tap into it for us. Because the question that I have is, what are some of the common characteristics that people wish the sheriff's office would do that's really out of your lane to do? Are there any demands that they try to put on you that you really can't even reach into?
Nothing really pops in my mind when you ask that question. And I think it's just because we have been so strong and fortunate in building the programs that we have. I would say, and this is kind of not only along the addiction side, we do get phone calls of things that we may not be able to do ourselves, but I still, no matter what the problem is, I still want people that if they're in doubt and they don't know who to call us. We'll figure it out. I mean, I jokingly say, we get calls about busted water pipes, at people's houses. Well, even though I did plumbing for 7 years and I know what real work is, I don't want to go back and do it again.
Sure if I can picture
I can't go and fix your busted pipes, but we can call and find somebody that can do it. So I have no problem with the sheriff's office being that catch-all. It doesn't matter what your problem is. We can make a call, or we can try to find somebody that can help you in any way, because no matter what the problem is, no matter how big or small, at that point in time, that person is in crisis. That's why they're calling us. So if it's a busted mailbox or a busted pipe, call us, because we want to be them. We want to be there for you and help you any way we can.
Yeah. See, and everyone thinks when you need help, you call the sheriff's office. So the word just help comes in there, and you say
okay
call the sheriff's office. Okay, that might be why you need a lot more deputies for all the plumbing calls that you got to respond to.
That's right.
There's you talked about it in the very beginning part, but it's something that I wanted us to talk about a little bit. There's times where you can bleed in the idea of, hey, this is clearly somebody who needs help. Mm-hmm. This is somebody who's struggling with drug and alcohol addiction. They're not somebody that the handcuffs are necessarily going to help to reform. But then there's a lot of times that is the case. There's often times, and you talked about it with the dealer aspect, where people's actions have very real consequences, sometimes consequences that cost other people their lives, where accountability has to be real for them. Do you ever find a struggle balancing those two while you make decisions for maybe even overall policy for the sheriff's office on how you approach these things?
I think as a whole, when you're getting somebody that is not dealing, that is strictly using, because, I mean, let's face it, they kind of have to. I mean, and you know about that. I think we all struggle when we see that dead look in their eyes, when it's just, I wouldn't say submission, but everything they've done up to this point has not worked. They probably feel like they failed. And it does affect us when we see that in people's eyes, but we still know we have to do a job. I remember, and I was not part of the initial implementation of the Anchor Initiative, but I remember one thing very specifically, that we didn't want a program that was going to give you a way out without consequences. Because if you don't have consequences, then you're not held accountable.
It's oftentimes the catalyst for change.
It is. And, that was one big thing I know that they worked on, was making sure that the consequences were still there. I can't list all the programs, but I know there were some that we looked at where, you would go to this instead of this. Well, I think the way we've done it obviously has worked. And, I think it's very important that they still have those consequences. But it does. I know I would drop people off, and I would have to take just a minute, because you feel so bad because you saw the struggle. But you've got to do your job as well, because if you don't, then what happens if they get out and something even worse happens to somebody else because of their choices? Then they weren't held accountable, and you potentially could have prevented that. So that's the struggle. Every law enforcement officer has discretion. We talk about discretion. If you're speeding, I can give you a verbal warning, I can give you a written warning, I can write you a citation. And depending on what your speeds are, I could actually take you to jail. So it's all about discretion. But, we've also got to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to prevent anything in the future.
Keeping people safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think when you talk about that, I think of a group that meets at our center. It's called Families Anonymous, and I speak to that group often. It's a group of family members who either have loved ones in addiction or had lost loved ones to addiction. And when I think about it, I oftentimes think about the struggle that families go through about, let's say, like kicking a child out of a home who continues to use drugs in the home. And they would say things to me when I would say, you can't continue to provide resources for people if they're going to continue to act that way with those resources. There has to be some kind of lever that you pull. But in my case personally, Sheriff, my parents pulled the rug out from underneath of me. Best thing that ever happened to me. Looking back then, it sucked, really bad. Like when it happened, I was like, dang, this is garbage, but it forced me into a Carolina Beach lifeguard tower for like 3 nights. I found out that I wasn't very good at being homeless. I wasn't tough enough. It was only like 45 degrees too.
I was going to say, what time of the year was it?
Yeah, it was only like 45 degrees, but I was just freezing my butt off. But that truly what I went to detox that day. I ended up going to a place up in the safe house. So I talk to them all the time and I say, you always say that you're worried about what will happen to them if you kick them out of your house, that they might, everyone's worst nightmare, overdose and die. They might do this, they might have that. But they'll do that up in your bonus room playing the PlayStation that you bought for them.
Yeah.
They'll overdose and die hanging out in your house is not keeping them from the thing that's actually after them. And when you think about that for us, going to jail is not the worst thing that can happen to somebody who's dealing with addiction. Would you say that's a fair comment?
Yeah. And this just popped in my head when you say that. I guess, would you say that by allowing them to still be where they're comfortable, you're doing just that? You're making it even more comfortable for them, even while you're making the high better because they're inside.
I would.
And you're making, they have a safe place. They got everything they need. So, I mean, it's, you're providing a not a safer place, but just a better place for them, even in as bad of a situation as they are.
Yeah, I would say that.
I would say, I don't think anybody in law enforcement enjoys arresting people. That's not why we get it.
Not where you get
if you get into law enforcement for that, then you're probably going to be a problem child. And, hopefully you don't last very long because we don't want those people in law enforcement. I say this a lot when I'm talking to people, and it sounds so cliche, and I apologize, but I truly got into law enforcement because I wanted to help people. My cousin worked for Prince William County, Virginia Police Department. This is how I got started, and I'll keep it short. He was working on patrol, and I would go up there and I would get to do ride-alongs with him, and I got to see how he interacted with people and how he got to help people. And when I saw him do that and the way he talked to people, it triggered something in me. And I came home right away, made one phone call to my best friend's brother because he was working at the sheriff's office, and bam, everything just fell into place. So I truly got in here to help people. And so I don't think people get into law enforcement to arrest people. I truly believe that 99.9% of the people just want to be a part of the community and want to help people. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I think that when you watch, back to this culture piece, what a lot of your deputies have been able to accomplish just by plugging people in to the resources that already exist, there's a certain intention that they have to go out and know those resources, how to access those resources. We built relationships with some of them who are the frequent flyers, pointing people in our direction. Like I said, my neighbor, he texts me and he's like, hey, what should I do if I got a guy who's like this, this, and this? And I'll respond to him immediately. That is truly in the lane of the most immediate help that any other nonprofit's providing inside of the community. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The sheriff's office isn't a nonprofit, I don't think, right?
I mean, we're not in the business of making money. So.
Yeah. But when you think about it, you guys are truly liaisoning these things. And with the right leadership in place, you get to serve that pillar of the most immediate help that people need most often. So in the drug and alcohol addiction world, while we're traveling people through programs on a community basis, and we're watching accountability take place, you're always trying to find that balance between the two. You don't want to remove consequences for people. We've seen that happen and we've seen it go awry. Nobody likes a spoiled kid, right? Yep. So through that though, as people become more accustomed to the idea that people can get well, your deputies get to see that in real effect. Rewarding process, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, just to make it full circle, at the end of the day, I want people to think of the sheriff's office like the catch-all. If they need help, they just need to let us know. Whether it's catching a deputy on the street, calling 911, calling the sheriff's office, going to one of the substations. I mean, we are in the community all the time. We're easily accessible. If you need help, all you got to do is ask, and we'll figure out the resources. I think the hardest part is on them to actually ask for the help because we're such a prideful people. So ask for help. We'll figure out the rest. There's somebody out there, whether it's in this community or not, we have those connections and we can get you the help that you need.
When you think about the help that we're capable of providing, what do you think about the biggest gaps? Do you see any big ones that we really can't reach into right now? You talked about population and how it's climbing as far as resources for individuals, especially in addiction. It's great. I love being I just got to say this for us selfishly. I love being at the forefront of the sheriff's office mind when they think addiction recovery.
Absolutely.
Like that's what I love being there. Like the more deputies who call us to solve that problem, the more I sleep at night knowing, hey, we're out there, we're doing what we're supposed to do as an organization, Christian Recovery Centers. You guys have tried to fill some gaps with the programs that you have, but do you still see one that's really evident?
I would go back to the informational gap. And
People don't know.
I really, as much as we're out there, as much as you do, I see you out there. I see the name everywhere. We are pumping everything out there. It just still amazes me the people that have not heard about the programs. So, that I think that's the biggest gap that we have. You obviously are doing everything you can because, you're growing. Look at what you've done here in a short amount of time. So, and then not only here, but in other places. So the growth is always going to be needed. We're always going to have people like you to be innovative and find ways to get that money because we all know that it's all about money.
You got to.
But getting that information, it amazes me that so many people still don't know what we have.
Yeah, there is. It's one of those things too, like talking to families often, they don't know it. They don't even think about needing it until they actually really need it. So then you're kind of in that spot to where you're urgently trying to figure out a solution. You never paid attention before until you found out Johnny upstairs was shooting fentanyl, every weekend. And that brings me to the other point that I want to bring up with you today, because you guys are both working to help navigate people who've already kind of fallen into the addiction piece, but you're also trying to make sure that Brunswick County as a whole is protected from the supply of drugs coming into it. So when you talk about how you approach, can you share a little bit how the sheriff's office approaches controlling supply here, what we do to make sure that drug dealers don't run rampant on the streets?
Yeah. So, we've obviously got a narcotics unit, and that's strictly their focus. Back when I was in special operations and working a canine, our job was to beat down the street level and get them off the street corners, push them into the houses so the narcotics agents could do their bigger investigations, get the supplies coming in. And I tell you, it's tough nowadays with technology. The way money moves around and it's not cash anymore, trying to find everything that you need to pinpoint. We've done really well trying to keep up with that technology, but it's only going to get better and better, and it's expensive for us. I would say one thing that we do really well at the sheriff's office is we value the information that comes in from our community. We're 865 square miles.
Big county.
Over 1,000 if you include the waterways that we patrol. I've got probably 14 working narcotics agents for the entire county.
Wow.
At any given time, there's 15 slots.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought it'd be a lot more.
Well, there's 15 slots on patrol answering all the 911 calls that come in. We know that we cannot be everywhere. And we also don't know who should and should not be in the neighborhoods. So we really encourage people through our website, through our app, or you can call us, give us that information. See something, say something. If you've got that house that you see 10 to 15 cars pull up and stay for 30 seconds and leave, probably something going on. Every tip that comes into the sheriff's office, it comes through my phone, and then it gets automatically distributed to the divisions that would handle the problem. I encourage you to leave your name and phone number, but you don't have to. It just gives us a contact to get some better information. But I tell you, a lot of the information we get from the community leads to some of our big investigations and our big arrests for the ones that are supplying the county. I mean, if you've seen anything, over the last several weeks, we've had quite a few. And, there's more stuff coming, stuff I can talk about, stuff that I can't. But, we have a lot of dedicated men and women at your sheriff's office, and they're very passionate about getting those people off the street that's dealing it, and to stop it from even coming into the county. So, the biggest thing I want to encourage today is if you see or have information for us, tell us, because you may think it's nothing, but we might have 99 pieces of a puzzle that we need. You could be that 100th piece that we need to finish and solve the puzzle. Yeah,
well, that goes into a big piece of protecting the community. And everyone really does focus on the idea, like this is the way our structure of society is set up. They focus on the supply issue. the sheriff's office, like us often, gets to interact with it on both ends, the supply and the demand issue. Like, let's face it, you can't pollute an economy with drugs and alcohol if there's no demand issue.
That's right.
So both have to take place and be prevalent. I personally believe the demand issue is a much bigger problem. Supply issue is still an issue, though. The thing when you kind of push it into the direction, you think about how susceptible our young people are. A lot of people don't know this about the sheriff's office, but you guys staff SROs inside. Some too, right? Some of you put 2 SROs in some schools.
High schools have 2, and the rest of them have an SRO. All the schools in Brunswick County, even charter schools, have an SRO.
An SRO, a social resources officer. And these folks are really at the front lines of dealing with the next generation of folks who are coming up. And I'll just throw this out there, just Josh 101, my opinion of it. The most susceptible generation to drug and alcohol addiction that we've ever had in the history of our society because of what's going on. About carts that you get from the vape stores. They're running rampant inside of the schools. Kids are passing them back and forth like they're candy oftentimes. And these things are all gateways. For me, a bottle of 151 rum was my gateway into heroin. Like, it was drinking and partying.
Yeah.
And I was born in the 90s. But today, these vape stores, they're specifically marketing to young people. They got little bears standing on the corner waving, saying to come buy your juice from here. And that's what's going on. If you look at any of them, they look like a circus. Whenever you go, you're like, oh, what's, even my kids, if we drive by, they're like, oh, what's over there? What's in there? All these lights and stuff. So a lot of people don't appreciate the idea of what's happening to our young people and how the sheriff's office has to interact with it there on a frequent basis with our kids serving in SROs. Do you have a good read on that?
Yeah, I mean, the vapes have definitely run rampant through the schools. I've had conversations with some legislators, and we've got to make a move on this. Last year I hit every single vape shop in Brunswick County.
I remember that.
And we went through and seized a lot of illegal stuff that was geared towards kids. But our hands are tied until new laws come out.
I was going to say, one of the limitations of the sheriff's office, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really need people to push the legislators to make a move on this CBD stuff, the gummies, everything. It would just be easier just to make it all legal. I get that it could potentially be a revenue source for North Carolina, but there's either you got to make it illegal or put some stronger regulations on this stuff. And, I was at a Christian school last year, and I had the headmaster come to me and say, yeah, I saw one of my 15-year-old students walk in there and buy something. I was like, it blew my mind. So the laws have got to get stronger. I am fully prepared to do whatever we have to do to get a handle on this. I just need some help.
Yeah, and that's legislative.
That's legislative, yes.
One of the things that I was particularly proud of, and we've been on the sponsoring end of this, I think Anchor Initiative has also been on the sponsoring end of this. The ABC stores contribute a decent amount of revenue back into community-based programs. You guys are, I think Anchor Initiative has been grant recipients of that in the past, so has Christian Recovery Centers. But that comes from a very special tax. And I had pitched to some of our North Carolina legislator friends, how wise would it be for that same effect to go into place at a minimum for these smoke shops where there's a special tax, and all those dollars pour right back into the schools for prevention efforts. So, hey, Josh and Sheriff Chism can go tag team Raleigh one day and try to shake some trees loose, because you're absolutely right. There's a thing that's taking place where a lot of people think, because and this is something that I give a lot of kudos to. Representative Wayne Sasser was right at the forefront of the tip of the spear of trying to make sure this happened years ago with the first shot in the arm. Maybe a bad analogy for the conversation we're in today. First shot in the arm of the opioid settlement dollars that came in. We flooded this place with naloxone. Like, your sheriff's office got it in every single car.
Yep.
The EMS, it's everywhere. Okay. Yep. So, what, in turn, a lot of people thought the problem got a ton better because overdose deaths went way down. But drug use has continued to go on this trajectory. More people are being reversed out of overdoses, but more people are overdosing today than ever before. It's a little bit, as someone in your role, okay, that's got to be a little bit scary.
It is. I mean, they can take more. They can get the stronger stuff.
Yeah.
And they've got that safety net. You know, I mean, that's what
you've seen it before, where when they and most people are shocked when they hear me say this, but where someone overdoses, almost dies, or even does die, okay, and the next day that drug dealer sold out because they got the hottest stuff on the block. You've seen that before,
it's
right?
like an advertisement for them. It's a money maker. Yeah, absolutely.
It's better than a commercial at the Super Bowl for them to sell what they got. That's right.
People hear about it and the word spreads.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, when we talk about naloxone, I've watched people get hit with naloxone while they're overdosing. And then about, 15, 20 minutes later, they go back to overdosing because they had so much.
Yeah.
You know, people have a false sense of security with that naloxone. It doesn't get rid of what's in your system. It temporarily stops it and reverses it. But it can come, even if you don't use in between, you can still overdose again off of what's in your system. And it's scary. But yeah, they look for that. It's an advertisement for them. Yeah,
and people are, it definitely speaks to like the sickness part of it. But one of the things I think about for the sheriff's office and how you guys might be looking ahead for all of this stuff, that's a big problem. Very time consuming problem. Something that you guys have to respond to frequently now. You didn't really have, I'll tell you, when I was using heroin, fentanyl wasn't prevalent. It was really heroin. Mm-hmm. Heroin doesn't even exist anymore. It's all fentanyl. Mm-hmm. Most people who are tuning in, they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't get that like heroin's not even really a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. It's all manufactured opiates now is what flooding our street, and it's extremely powerful. This is one of the ways that I know that the folks inside of our legal system and law enforcement, they have to be thinking, whoa, how in the world are we going to keep up if we continue to see addiction spike? People become more addicted than ever. The next generation of our folks traveling through addiction continues to be on the rise. How are we going to handle? Because you guys respond to like every single overdose call. Yep. Yeah, that's you guys. It has to be there.
And it's scary for us to think, you started with heroin, then you moved to fentanyl,
What's
and then
next?
carfentanil. I mean, what's next? I mean, it can progressively gets worse, which is dangerous for us because the amount that it would take to make us overdose, or even kill us because, we don't use it. Our body's not used to it. So, that little grain of sand specks that could overdose you if it absorbs in your skin. It's happened before. I remember this was probably 2 years ago. Very scary. We had, I forget what police department it was, but they had arrested somebody and they had the evidence. And I think there was some had gotten on the outside of the bag or something, and they were driving in their car and it got in the air and they started to have symptoms of overdose.
Yep.
Just that minute amount. It's really scary for us. And it's crazy for us to think that people are chasing after this stuff.
Yeah.
As bad as it is. But
yeah, I think I read about that from the sheriff's office a couple of years ago, and something had seeped in. I've seen it too before in the major cities, where their gloves, someone had a hole in their gloves. Yep. And it's, most people don't know it can seep into your pores if you touch it. And this stuff is so potent that, a speck of dust size could just touch your skin. And because you have no tolerance to it, you could put you into like an early overdose type of symptom for it.
Absolutely.
So do you guys, I imagine at these round tables and whatever leadership looks like in the sheriff's office, I know that you have a chief deputy. No, you have two chief deputies, right?
Yep.
So that's like the tip of the spear.
Yeah, the majors and the two chief deputies. That's kind of
and the two chief deputies.
Yeah, that's our higher command level is the majors and two chief deputies.
So how much time does the tip of the spear of the sheriff's office spend trying to forecast and mitigate these drug and alcohol addiction problems that are kind of every day taking new shape in a way? Every week, you're finding those things. You got to spend a decent amount of time in preparation for what might be coming.
Every Monday we meet and we talk about what's happened over the weekend or the week before and just kind of game plan for the next week. if we have a bad week on overdoses, then yeah, that can definitely be a topic for discussion. But more so for our men and women to keep them safe. And we give them all the equipment they need, but with as potent as that stuff is, I mean, imagine if it just gets in the air and you breathe it in. I mean, how do you? I mean, you could wear a mask 24/7, or not 24/7, but when you're dealing with that stuff. But I mean, it's just definitely making sure we keep that thought in the forefront of their minds. They've got to remember that, and just making sure they have what they need.
Yeah, they have so you probably have aspirations, dreams for the sheriff's office. Usually, this is what I'll say: someone who's willing to take as much of a beating as a politician usually has big dreams for what they're trying to accomplish. Because it definitely ain't the paycheck, brother, that's putting you through all the misery. Okay.
When you're passionate about what you do, I think that's what drives you. And that's what pushes you to the next day and the next day and the next day, and overcoming those frustrations that you may see. And, but at the end of the day, I make decisions and I do what I feel is necessary to keep the citizens safe. And every night I lay my head down knowing that I'm doing what I think is right. And if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
There's something inside me that really hopes that's true, right? If it doesn't actually kill you there, it makes you stronger. I hope that that's real. Because it'll catch up to you one day, possibly, if it's not true. So if it's truly making you stronger, you're just every day becoming more of a monster.
That's right.
That's what my hope is. Absolutely. I tell folks over at my place when we're working, and the chat that I got to have earlier in the podcast episodes with Ray Wood dipped directly into the treatment courts program. Mm-hmm. A lot of people also don't appreciate how closely affiliated with these other external programs that you guys get to work with. Treatment courts is a key partner. I saw you at the graduation last time. I guess that's a primary function for you. Do you get to open up and do that?
It has become that way.
Yeah. Okay. And I didn't know if that was a permanent thing or if that was just that one.
I did the first. I did a couple of them, and I said, "You just let me know when. I'll be there every time to do the welcome." I mean, it's just one part of that puzzle that we're lucky to be a part of to try to turn things around. And like I said, I enjoy seeing the looks in their eyes.
The folks,
every on Thursdays, usually every 2 weeks, they've got the drug treatment court. And we always go Thursday mornings because Ray does devotion at 8:30 at the courthouse every Thursday. So I'm usually in there, and I'll walk up to the courts. And if treatment court's going on, I'll peek my head in there while they do case management, and I'll try to stay for some of the people. And just seeing, you see the up and downs during that time, because I mean they can be in there for a year and a half. It just depends. And you see those up and downs. But if you stay and you go long enough, you see that consistent up, and you just see the glimmer in their eyes change, and you can kind of see when things turn around. And people need to see that to know that, what they're doing is making a difference. Because that's going to push you as well.
Yeah, I saw the last graduation when the folks went up there. You truly can see kind of a new hope that they're leaning into. And one of the greatest gifts that I think we have over at the ministry is getting to watch that happen all the time with our folks who are traveling through the programs. New lease on life might be underplaying it a little bit because their entire script has been rewritten. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think is necessary for that is that they turn a different eye towards what the sheriff's office does for them. Mm-hmm. Pulling back, one of the ideas that we had was to try to make sure that they no longer had any kind of stigma attached to the sheriff's office. And that's hard for our folks. It's both and most people don't talk about the and part because it's easy for us to look at people who are struggling with drug and alcohol addiction and be like, they're an offender, right? Or they're somebody who needs to be taught a lesson to, or we need to arrest away the problem. Yeah. But then we oftentimes don't talk about the thing you're talking about, the tip line. You know what they say about snitches? They end up in ditches, Sheriff. No, so there you go. Retraining our folks of what the sheriff's office is there to do. And if you're going to be this new productive member of society, that you have to start viewing the sheriff's office this way.
And it's taken us a long time to realize that even if you have to arrest somebody, there needs to be that's not it doesn't stop there. You know, the programs that we have, that we've created, it gives us an opportunity to see what's past that. You know, for the longest time, it was just, you know, you take a report, you do investigations, there's follow up. So why should this be any different? You know, we've got to let people know that we're there not only at your deepest and darkest moment. We want to be there at the forefront when you're at the top of your game. And for us to be at the graduation and go to things like that.
That's right.
You know, that shows them that we are truly being a part of the community, and it builds trust.
It builds trust.
And it builds transparency.
Yeah.
So I think that is very important. That's something that law enforcement is now trying to catch up on. You know, don't just be there when they're in crisis. Be there well beyond that. Be there in the good times, not just the bad.
I was driving down the road, LJ and we were driving down the road the other day, and I saw one of our graduates pulled over, a couple deputies behind him. And he was standing out on the side of the road. And this fella, okay, I've known him for years, and he's not the coolest person under pressure. So I immediately go to this place in my head where I'm thinking, look, his body language looked off. He was standing on the outside of the car. And when I drove by, he was like pointing his finger. And I was like, oh, brother. I was like, just say yes, sir. I was like, brother, just say. So I called him. He didn't pick up. I was driving by. I was going to turn around and give him a ride. But I called him again. Okay, didn't pick up. Well, I get to where I'm going, LJ and he texts me. He's like, hey, sorry I missed your call. And I was like, brother, I saw you on the side of the road. Send him a text back. I was like, you okay? I was like, I was just going to try to remind you, chill out, type of thing. You know what he said? He said, well, I was driving my friend's car. The tags were out. He said, but the deputy's giving me a ride home. I'm good. So it's that kind of thing where you are right, man. This is people are not, they're easily agitated, right? They're not as cool. And this thing I think about all the time, the de-escalation thing that I watch the sheriff's office reinforce with folks. As professionals at your job, you probably rise to the occasion of saying, we have to be the coolest head in the room, right? Because when you watch, I just know that our folks are not the coolest head.
Hey, and we don't get it right all the time.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think people need to remember is we are human just like everybody else.
That's a good word.
We're not built differently.
Yeah.
You know, I think we do have a different mindset on service above self than, a lot of people. But we're not built any differently. We didn't grow up in some, factory like, we're not a robot.
Yeah.
We're human just like everybody else. We have the same emotions. We have the same problems that everybody else has. We have the same problems at work. We have the same problems at home.
Yep.
And we are also tasked with consistently dealing with people in crisis, which means most of what we get to see and do is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that messes with us. So, for everybody out there that was treated, they felt like they were treated unfairly or they were treated rudely by a cop, I genuinely apologize, but we're human just like everybody. We have bad days too. So I always tell people to kill them with kindness. So whether you're the officer on the street that's pulled the person over or the person in the car, just kill them with kindness. Yeah, and you'll probably, if you were ever going to get a break, that'd probably be the easiest way to get it.
Yeah.
Or a ride home. Instead
home.
of us telling you, all right, see you later.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility. But, I think we really try to hammer into our men and women that, service. We're providing a service for the citizens of Brunswick County. If we can do something, anything to make it easier on them, even if you write them a ticket, if they need a ride, give them. I mean, we got time to do that.
Yeah. I feel the pressure of that too. Like as the CEO of the ministry, we got like 100 folks who are employed there and a couple hundred folks filling the residential beds. It's not even like I have to have a bad attitude or like cuss somebody out behind the cooler type of thing.
Yeah.
It could just be like, I'm slightly less engaging. And it's like, what's wrong with Josh?
Oh, yeah.
There is that like
yeah.
standard dynamic thing
Yep.
that takes place.
Yep.
And you're like, what's wrong with Josh? What's wrong with Josh? I'm like, oh Lord, but it's a good word. Yeah. You're so human. That drug and alcohol addiction, it doesn't just leave the sheriff's office alone.
Mm-hmm.
Some of your folks have likely struggled with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing too. So that's another thing that I just thought about while we're having this conversation. The average says that 1 out of 9 people have or currently is struggle with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think that our society, as it continues to rewrite, it just starts to become more and more necessary. We ingrain that type of prevention and recovery culture in everything that we do because it's coming for us, as a society in a big way.
Yeah. And I mean, you speak on law enforcement addiction. Some people just see addiction as drugs. Well, it's not just drugs. It's the drugs. It's the alcohol. It could be gambling. There's so many things that you could be addicted to.
Yep.
And I think that's why, you hear the word addiction a lot more than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
It was more, if you were talking about it, he's got a drug problem. He said, now you have an addiction problem. And we're thankfully finding ways to turn people around.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that we get to be a part of that too. I really appreciate your work. And more importantly, I've appreciated our friendship that we've gotten to build. Since you become sheriff, we've gotten to know each other more and more. I think the first time we actually got to meet and interact, the first year you were sheriff, I think we got to do the Diamonds and Denims ball. You guys did Christian Recovery Centers for. I'll see you is that next weekend?
March 6th.
March 6th. I'm coming.
Well, good.
Yeah. I'm at Lindsey Jenkins' table.
I'm looking forward to seeing
come.
you.
2 great groups you guys chose to sponsor again this year. But I do want to say I appreciate the Sheriff's Office partnership. If there's anything we can do for you, we're right around the corner.
I got your phone number.
That's what I'm saying. Just come. Hey, right around the corner. We'll do anything for you. I know y'all will for us.
Yep.
Sheriff Chism today on the podcast with us behind the Sitco. We were grateful for this conversation. The sheriff who says handcuffs can't solve addiction. Tune it in today to check it out. We'll see you next time.